after much digging and desperation and prayer and yelling at God and saying, really, are there people you can't fix? Are there kids that have no hope? Is it true that there is a hope for everyone, or are some of us just messed up enough to never be able to get healed? Okay? And so we had kind of a crisis, we had a severe crisis of belief. And we cried out to the Lord, I mean, loudly, for a long extended period of time, and we went digging. So here's what the Lord led us to. So, how trauma affects the human brain. We're going to talk about some of the factors. The first one is the survival switch in your brain. Traumatic pain trips the survival switch in the brain and instantly begins to operate in fight, flight, or freeze mode. So I learned in driver's ed that if I had to rely on the frontal cortex or prefrontal cortex of my brain to save myself from a vehicle that acts irresponsibly and pulls out in front of me, if I had to think, now that car should not have done that, and I've got about 45 seconds before I hit that car, so I probably should put on the brake, but maybe I should swerve to the right. What's going to happen? You're going to have... So what happens is when your survival switch switches on, God has made you so that within a millisecond, you can respond. Okay? You can step on the brake. There was no logic involved. You just did it. No analysis. Okay? It saves you. That's what your switch is for.
Christine,
okay?
we have a computer term called hyperlink.
There you go.
That, like, whenever I switch to the videos, it immediately goes to that video wherever it's at, whether it's on YouTube or on my computer or whatever. Immediately. Hyperlink, that's the switch.
You like that, huh? You just learned that last night.
Well, I knew I could access all the files, and then we had a computer geek here, and he said, you can do that with your videos too. I went, oh, okay.
So, the important thing to know is that when your survival switch is in the on position, almost all, a major amount of all of your other body functions go into shutdown mode. Okay? So, your survival switch takes over. Okay, so your survival switch takes over, and so appetite is suppressed, you know, like, hey, I feel hungry. Well, you're not thinking about that right now, okay? So your sleep mode, the things that govern your body regulations, your systems, and whatnot. And you've heard of blackout and brownout. Well, some of them are completely blacked out, like, hey, I need to analyze that. No, you don't. You need to just get yourself safe, okay? But some of them are in brownout. So some of your body functions, and the ones that I mentioned aren't turned off. Let me just get to my notes here. So when the survival switch is turned on, the brain functions that control appetite, sleep, pleasure, satisfaction, they brown out. While other areas of the brain continue to run, but they have just less energy reserves. So it's like trying to live on survival rations. Okay? So what happens is your whole body just kind of hunkers down, while your survival area of your brain is captain of you, and it bosses you, okay? So your body was not designed to live in survival mode, but that's exactly what happens when your survival switch stays on and doesn't turn off after the crisis has passed. This is called PTS, post-traumatic stress. It can become a disorder, okay? You will always have some stress after a crisis, okay? Because all the adrenaline that has to actually be disseminated through the body. It actually has to be absorbed and then excreted through urine or sweat or breath, okay? So it's because the chemical adrenaline has been hyper aroused in you. So have you ever felt after you've had a close call, you're like, oh, okay, I'm just going to sit here for a minute, you're a little bit shaky, and your knees feel a little weak, you're like, okay, that's the adrenaline kind of going, okay, you lived through that one, okay? So PTS means that you live in that situation, in that red alert all the time. Now, you may not really recognize that, but your body is in that red alert stage because the switch stays on. Until recently, the only way to get some relief from PTSD symptoms is to manipulate the body and force it to relax through medication management. The only problem is that the brain continues to read everyday life as if you're always in mortal danger. But the body can't respond to the brain's messages because it has been drugged. Symptoms of PTSD are tough to bear, okay? And that's why we even self-medicate, okay? If we can't get the doctor to medicate us, we self-medicate. We do whatever, sometimes we even over-exercise. Somebody that's in the gym every single day for an hour and a half, okay? Or 2 hours, okay? Okay, and that's their drug of choice, okay? It's there to help them get rid of that adrenaline buildup that is there because the switch has been left on. So what happens is when the body is being drugged or numbed and the brain is still functioning with the switch on in red alert, this causes even more stress in the brain and the body. So in order to manage the buildup of stress, that's when we do cross addictions and other things that we need to do in order to survive. Let me tell you that that stress wears on you, and it eventually creates all kinds of other things in your system and in your body, and we're going to talk about that as we go. So traumatic pain creates unresolved, and the word here, the key word is unresolved painful memories. So let's just revisit the traumatic pain definition. It's an experience that's so painful, so shocking, so terrifying, or so confusing that it overwhelms the brain's ability to process the event. And I'm just going to refer right now. We're not going to talk about childhood trauma so much in this seminar, but let me tell you that the one that we do, that's Triumph Over Trauma, How to Get Past Your Past, talks about what happens when your little survival switches on when you're a kid. Okay? Because everything is already larger than life. Everything is already big because you're little, and you have very little power. And when your needs aren't met, and when you can't get love, and when you aren't getting the attention that you need, when you're abandoned and neglected, when you're bullied, okay? When your heart is broken because you're not getting the love that you need, maybe you're being abused. Okay? So what happens then is your little survival switches on when you're a kid. Now, kids are pretty resilient, right? And they can manage a lot. But you add years of that, and then when a big thing happens, another big thing, it can become the straw that breaks the camel's back. All right? And the body goes, that's it. I'm done. Okay? So we're just going to be, what we're doing right now is we're just describing some of the ways that you process stress. So these unresolved memories create chronic stress in the body, and stress in the body when living on red alert 24/7 is exponential, huge. And eventually that chronic stress or fear state, we're going to call that, wears the body and the mind down. This is where mental illness comes from. So anybody can be driven into a state of mental distress, which can then create mental illness. Chronic stress has been identified as the root source of nearly every physical and mental illness we ever experience. You're going to hear a neurologist today, a neuroscientist today, tell you just how much it affects your body and your mind. Ongoing perpetual stress oversensitizes the neural pathways of the brain that deal with the anxiety and fear responses and create another condition in the brain, which we'll talk about later. So another name for stress is fear. Everybody say fear.
Fear.
Fear. Fear in all its forms creates stress. Chronic fear from unresolved painful memories creates permanent memories or templates which become distorted perceptions of the actual events. So conclusions are formed and decisions are made based on fight, flight, or freeze survival messages. So here's what the body does in the fight, flight, or freeze. Here's how it operates. You either stand and fight, you run and hide, or you freeze and play dead. Okay? Those are the three things. And sometimes you use all three. It just depends on what's working. If fighting isn't working, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run and hide. And if they come and find me, I'm going to play dead. Okay? I'm going to numb out. I'm going to freeze. I'm not going to deal with that. So stress, chronic fear, feels like the event is still happening. What happens is when your fight or flight switch is on, the brain is still acting as if you are still in the moment of the trauma. Like the car wreck is still happening, or the abuser is still abusing, or, whatever. You're still running from the bad guy. It feels larger than life, and the story gets bigger and bigger in the body as it replays in your head. And every time you remember it, the emotions overwhelm you again and again and again. Your heart beats faster, your palms get sweaty, you get jittery. And it gains negative momentum as the quality of your life begins to deteriorate. Okay, am I describing?
Yep.
Okay, so let's just talk about what happens then in the brain. The first thing that happens is you create little T-truths. Little T-truths are the interpretation of your experiences. I'm back on little T-truths, Davey. Little T-truths are the experiences, are the interpretation that you put on your experiences. Well, this happened, so it means that this must be true about them, or about me, or about life, or about God, or about my future, or about my past. These are the little T-truths that become our belief system. Core fears, little T-truths are how we remember the event and how it made us feel. But these are perceptions. And it's our truth because it's what you experienced. So if I tell you, if you've had let's say you had an abusive parent. Let's say it's a father. And I say, oh, yeah, but your dad, dads are good, men are safe. And you're thinking, no, I don't think so. Okay? And your experience is my dad was not good and he was not safe. I'm not going to be able to talk you into that fact because you've already made up your mind about it. It's been your experience, and I'm not going to be able to talk you out of that. That's called a little T-truth. So it has to be believed in order to be true. So put down little T-truth has to be believed in order to be true. Because guess what? When you're a little child and you've had an experience and you think it's the boogeyman, okay, then you're not going to talk a kid out of the boogeyman. It doesn't get any different when when your survival switch is on and you're an adult. Okay? You cannot talk a child out of boogeymen until they get a new truth. So here we go. So you have little T-truths. Everybody put your glasses on. And this becomes your filter. So now this is your experience, and everything in your life, every experience, every relationship, every circumstance, every new or planned event, everything in the past is now filtered through the glasses of your pain and your fear. I want you to think about that. If in fact the things that have happened to you have now given you a pair of glasses to wear where everything you now see is distorted through fear, through that pain, what's that doing to your future? What's that doing to your present? Okay, this is how the enemy operates. You don't have to keep those on very long. There is a thing in us that says, I have to be right in order to survive. Because your survival switch is on. And it's making decisions to keep you alive and safe and loved. And if it makes a wrong decision, you're dead. You're toast. You're unloved and it's over. So you have to be right. So there's this thing inside of you that says, I have to be right. This has to be right. Okay, because it saved me, right? Because here I am, I'm still alive and I'm still breathing, and my methods of saving myself were really darn good, because here I am. But instead, we end up involved and fully joining into the enemy's pain plan, which is fear leads to hate, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate leads to suffering, and here we go, around and around we go. Okay, so core fears. So core fears are formed during childhood as we are learning how to get our needs met. if you've had any level of trauma or abuse, any level of neglect, any level of emotional abandonment or physical abandonment or loss during childhood, you will already have established some core fears. And everyone has core fears based on unmet needs of love and value. I don't care if you have the best parents in the whole wide world. I had fabulous parents. Guess what? I had some core fears. Because there's an enemy, and he doesn't care what family you live in. He's going to make sure that something that you thought you needed, you don't get to have. Okay? And the love that your parents are going to give you, is it ever going to be enough? Heck no. No parent can ever love a child enough. Because the enemy will come in and give them some kind of lack message, some kind of abandoned message, some kind of sneaky thing to twist or to block or to make us feel undervalued or unappreciated or ignored. It doesn't really matter. The enemy's out there. As we grow and develop into adolescence, we add more core fears based on the need for acceptance and love. So we passed out a sheet of paper that these are possible core fears. See if you can find 4 that apply to you. And if your core fear doesn't appear on this list, write it in. Then nobody's going to see these. These are just for you. Everybody find one that might fit them? It's not uncommon to have them all. I'll just tell you that right now. So if you're looking at it, you're like, shoot, I have to check everything out. That's not uncommon. It happens all the time. And I know Holly will tell you that on her core fears that when she started on her healing journey, that there were so many on here.
Everyone.
Okay, everyone. So she had everyone. Okay? And she came from a loving family, by the way. Just letting you know. A loving family, a Christian believing loving family. And she had everyone. And so there's no judgment here. So be nice to yourself. Just say, oh, okay, there it is. and it's common because we have an enemy. So core fears are what happens, and we say, usually you can find your core fear when it makes you mad when somebody brushes up against it accidentally. Okay? And you're instantly mad the minute you get that message. Because what we do is we bring up our mad to protect ourselves. We'll talk about mad in a little while. So I want you to look at the bottom of the page and circle this. It says the central theme of all core fears is, man, I just need someone to love and appreciate and value me. Could you just notice that I'm worth something? Could you just appreciate me for being a valuable member of the human race? That's what core fears come from. Is that space where I'm not being valued or recognized or loved or appreciated. So perfect love, mature, full, God love casts out fear. I'm not talking about human love. Human love is defective in all of its ways. Human love wants something in return. But true love, Jesus love, is the antidote for fear. Because when you are fully loved, these core fears are non-existent. When you're fully loved, when you're fully valued and appreciated and given purpose and a position and a place, yeah, all of a sudden you are fearless. So our painful memories create little t truths, which then create core fears, which then produce reactivity. That's the whole mad thing. When someone gets too close to one of our core fears, we get triggered. and immediately we react. So when our core fears get triggered, we react sometimes with bitterness or revenge. Sometimes we're hostile or angry or aggressive. If you are in flight mode, you might get depressed and introverted and withdrawn and numbed out, and you might isolate. Or you might just blame or project or be critical or, boost yourself up by putting other people down. You might deny it, minimize it. Hey, no big deal, it's cool, So these are the kind of things that we do with our pain, here's the lemons, okay? So here we go. We are defensive, we justify, we rationalize. Sometimes we just get codependent, and we caretake and we fix things and we keep everybody else happy, and it's not healthy and it feels crappy, just saying. Humor, sometimes we're the funny man, we got a joke for every situation or a funny little remark or a ha ha ha, and all that is deflecting. Sometimes it's indifference or abdication, and sometimes it's complete self-abandonment. So fear of pain, another term for chronic stress, keeps the survival switch in our brain in the on position indefinitely. Okay? It's the fear of more pain, or the fear of possible pain in the future. This keeps our red alert on 24/7 and shuts down rational, reasoning, and the logical parts of our brain. It's the mature adult. We think about people in our lives and think, why don't you just grow up? Could you just act your age? Could you just make a good decision? Could you just think that through? Think that through. We used to say that to the boys. Think that through. And they're like, huh? They never could think anything through. They were on red alert. Could they ever say that if you do A, B will happen? Did it ever make a difference when you told them what B was? It didn't matter if it was a good B or a bad B. They didn't care about B. They were an A. And they were going to do whatever they thought was going to keep them safe from you, because you might be the enemy. Okay? So here we are. Keeps us from being able to analyze, be logical, to discern and accurately read a situation and to respond with mature and creative problem-solving solutions. We get in a jam, we're on red alert already, we're panicked. We can't think our way out of that. We can't make a plan because our survival switch is on. Okay, guess the good news is we're going to show you how to turn your switch off today. How about that? Wouldn't that be nice? Let's just turn that switch off. We didn't even know that our switch was stuck on. We just knew that nothing was working and that we didn't feel powerful and our life was in a mess. So here's what this is the second factor. This is behaviors. So this is just a recap of what we've already been saying. So behaviors are just coping skills. And the first one is flight skills. And so here's what we do when our switch is on and we're having to run and hide. We start with withdrawal and depression. It can then move to substance abuse of some form. And substance abuse, I'm talking about all kinds of behaviors and I'm just going to say all kinds of addictions. It can be shopping or eating or relationships, sexual relationships and multiple partners. It could be pornography. It could be a million things. Okay, dissociative, schizophrenia, bipolar, even autism can fall into the flight skills. Lots of mental illness comes into flight skills. It's one of the ways that we check out. It becomes fantasy thinking. It becomes the inability to process, and the brain just begins to have a life of its own. And then the ultimate flight skill is suicide. So the next slide. So the fight skills are passive-aggressive. It starts out with just being passive-aggressively resistant. It could be you say yes and you mean no, and you do no. And so you just kind of stubborn. You just kind of dig your heels in. You don't really let people know. You let them think that you're going to do what they want you to do. And behind their back, you're still doing whatever you want to do. Okay? Anger outbursts, aggression and violence, and you know, this cycle just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it can eventually end in homicide. So your freeze states, this is when you shut down emotionally. Many people after a traumatic event just feel numb. We had some people come to our drop-in center, and you know, their thing was, I can't feel. And that makes me feel afraid because I can't feel, I just feel numb. And people were saying, well, how are you doing? How are you doing? I don't know. I guess I'm okay. I can't really feel. And I don't want to be around people that don't ask me any questions.
Right.
Okay? When it's a terrible event, and especially if it happens when you were a child, it can create blackouts. Sections of your childhood that you can't even remember. Many of the people that we have worked with that are overcoming post-traumatic stress and the effects of the enemy will tell us that I don't remember, that my first memory is when I was 9. Or my first memory was when I was 7 and this happened. But then I don't remember anything until I was 12, I think. Okay, that's very common. And that's really just the brain's ability to say, okay, too much. We can't be there, we can't look at that, because the confusion of an event that big as a child that is unprocessable in the brain. It's like, okay, this happened and I'm pretty sure it shouldn't have. Let me look in my filing cabinet to see if there's some place that I can put that. Well, of course there's nothing in your filing system, because that was wrong and heinous, and it was from the enemy. So there's not going to be anything in your filing cabinet for you to file that into when you're a child. So these are the strings that attach to where you are today and how you're filing your experiences of today. So when the brain is overwhelmed, it cannot put its experiences into context. And it cannot process the event in order to make sense of it, and it keeps it in the present, and it can't be filed in the past as a memory. So it leaves that memory unresolved. Okay, am I talking too fast? Okay, here we go, next slide. So coping skills become thinking errors. Thinking errors are fear-filled negative thoughts. Thinking errors are your thoughts filled with fear. So these are some that we have. A codependency. I am responsible for everyone and everything, and I have to keep everybody happy so that I can be happy. Refusal to accept responsibility. I can't be responsible for that. That wasn't my fault. Sometimes it moves to I can't be responsible for anything. I couldn't be responsible for that. I shouldn't have to be responsible for anything because that happened to me. Sometimes it's controlling people and controlling our environment. We become very controlling, trying to keep us safe. So we try to manipulate everybody, get everybody to do what we need them to do to keep us safe. Fear-filled negative thinking. My situation and experiences are unique. You just don't understand me. You just don't understand my situation. I'm special. This is different. You don't get it. So we try to tell people what's going on for us, and they're going, oh yeah, I know. No, you don't know. Because, okay? And so we think that our situation is special and unique. If it's to be, it's up to me. Independence and isolation. I'm going to do this on my own. I don't need anybody. I'm just going to be by myself. We're not open to other perspectives. No one can talk to us. No one can say, have you ever thought that it might be something this, or this is a good idea, or can I come? Nah. We view ourselves as a victim. We blame other people. We quit at the first sign of failure. We fail to acknowledge negative behaviors in our own life. We self-sabotage. This was a big one. Our boys self-sabotage. We'd say, hey, do this good thing for 3 days and you get ta-da! And they're like, 1, 2, 2.5, crash and burn. You know why? I don't deserve it. So we have that fear-filled negative thinking that that's really not going to happen for me because I don't deserve it, so I'll just make it not happen, right? Because it's going to happen anyway, and I'll just be in charge of that so that I'm not a victim. Uses manipulation and deceit. Lots of times, I'm not going to do anything unless I get an immediate payoff. What's in it for me? You know? What do you got? Huh? Come on. I deserve something. No sense of obligation. That's why we can't have employees coming to work. They're not obligated to work. You're obligated to pay me. You're obligated to give me a job, but man, I'll be texting on the job. I'll be cell phoning. I'll be late. I won't do the job, you know? Are you laughing at me? Cell phoning.
What cell phoning?
That's what happens when you run out of words and you just make things up.
I like it.
Irrational fears.
We gotta write that one in.
Always have to be right. How many of you know someone that always has to be right? They are never wrong, and they will never let you win an argument, or not even an argument. How about just an opinion? They won't even let you have an opinion, because they have to be right. You're just like, oh, okay, forget it. Okay, these are all thinking errors, and what happens is that thinking errors become patterns and habits. This is not how you operate. You don't even have to think about it. It's just you. Okay? It's a behavior. It's a pattern and a habit. And that's then how you act. So we hide and we isolate and we sneak and we cover up and we depress. We sometimes get OCD. We lock doors, we turn off switches multiple times, we organize and we reorganize, and we are perfect. We look perfect. Our hair is perfect. Our makeup is perfect. We never are in public. My grandma, she's so cute. My grandma, who is in heaven with Jesus now, always had to look perfect, okay? And so she didn't go gray till she was 80, okay? We had very expensive wigs. And she would never let the grandkids know, so when we spent the night at Grandma's house, even when she had to get up to go to the bathroom, which was outside her bedroom, the wig was on with the jammies. Very cute. I didn't see my grandma without her wig until she was in the hospital getting ready to be with Jesus.
Did she take her wig with her?
You know what? We did.
Oh,
We
sweet.
did, absolutely. She wanted to, absolutely. My grandma was a beautiful, wonderful woman. Here we go. So, how did I get onto that? Okay. Perfection, hoarding sometimes. Anxiety, nail biting, wringing hands, restless leg syndrome. Do you know that much of our syndromes that we have now that are new, we have restless leg, we have fibromyalgia, these are all brand new diagnoses that are coming into play because the stress, the level of stress that is built up in the body from post-traumatic stress is having to do stuff in our body. It's manifesting in dis-ease. Poor personal care, self-abandonment, anger as the only emotion. How many of you know people that the only thing that they know how to do is get mad? I had a house full of boys. And the only thing they knew was frustrated and then mad. That's it. They didn't even know how to have fun on a birthday party. They didn't know how to receive a gift. They didn't know how to have a fun time. All they knew how to do is express anger, and it took a long time for them to figure out that they had other emotions. Negative effect in relationships and strongholds and addictions. So our patterns and habits then are hardwiring and programming our brain to fear. Okay, you're going to learn here. We'll do that. I'm getting ahead of myself. So here's the summary. Patterns and habits become generational patterns. Some of you are the product of a generational pattern. Maybe you are acting out a generational pattern right now. This has been the history in your family tree. But whatever the choices are that you're making, you are perpetuating it to the next generation. Unbonded attachment disorder. When we're just surviving, we cannot provide nurture and connection for our children because it's about us. We are surviving. There's no blame here. I'm just telling you this is how we respond. This hinders bonding and can result in attachment disorders and many other mental, emotional imbalances for children. And what happens then, this is where the dysfunctional families happen. Because someone in your an adult in your family was unable to process their pain, and they were in post-traumatic stress, perhaps from a childhood incident. They're very self-focused. When you are trying to survive, then you don't have what you need for your children, if you have children, or for your spouse, if you're in a relationship, okay? And so there's a breach there. In the absence of a new choice, I'm going to repeat that. In the absence of a new choice, generational known coping patterns will prevail. The good news about this is you can make a new choice. You don't have to go down the path that they went down.
Amen.
Does it feel a little bit uncomfortable and awkward at first? Maybe. But let me tell you, Jesus has given you the answers and the power to make a new choice. Just want you to know that. We're going to show proof of that in your brain. So, family, and then it results in family strongholds and addictions if you don't make a new choice. So the scripture even says, the sins of the fathers are visited upon the children to the third and fourth generation. What it's talking about is the bent. Okay, these are called iniquities. Iniquities are the habits and patterns of the family line are visited upon you unless you choose out. So here, this is how it works. Let's go to the coping skills, become thinking errors. Thinking errors become patterns and habits. And patterns and habits become generational patterns. Okay, folks, I want you to think about our world today. Your friends, your family, your neighbors, your co-workers. And I want you to see this pattern. And I want, before you go there, Davey, come back to me. I want you to think about this. I want this to create some compassion in your heart. Because coping skills have come from a painful event or events or process or reality in the lives of everyone who is in this cycle. And the author of that is not God. The author of that is the enemy. What this did for me with my boys, first of all, I didn't like this at all because I thought that their bad behaviors and their negative things meant that I was a bad person. I'm a bad mother. I'm a failure. I have no answers for you. And you're not responding to the answers that I do have. So I must be bad. I must be faulty. I must be defective. No. They just had a terrible life. And they were just coping. And they had thinking errors and patterns and habits that they were trying to survive. And their survival switch was stuck in the on position. And I didn't know in the beginning how to help them turn it off. Guess what? I know now. And some of my boys who were 13, 14, 15, 16 years old are now 21, 27, 28 years old. And some of them have been successful in turning off their survival switch. And they're functioning at a much higher level. Hallelujah. But we all have a choice. We all get to be on our journey as long as we need to be in order to get to the place where our pain is greater than our fear of how to fix it. Okay, here we go. So we're going to watch a clip. Now, let me just tell you that this is a newscast from where, David?
Toronto.
Canada. Okay, so this is a newscast that was done from Toronto, Canada, and it's long and it's very graphic, so we're not going to do all of it. So we've got some snippets in here that we want you to hear. Dr. Norman Deutsch is a leading researcher in this area, and he's going to talk in here. But this is cool news right here.
Uh-oh. Need your help, Lord.
You have to find the hand, David. Until you see the hand.
We lost the switch. We lost the
hyperlink.
We
The
lost.
hyperlink?
We lost the hyperlink.
Well, you know what to do.
Thank you, Lord.
So we're actually going to probably just access YouTube here and pull it up this way instead. Here we go.
I sort of lost 10 to 12 years of my life. I
Not
would
that
have
one.
sort of
Jeremy's
flashbacks.
on this.
And
Oh, that's right. Thank you.
have that kind of life. Because every day I would wake up and I wanted to die. I didn't want to go through another day. PTSD is a neuroplastic disorder par excellence. A person with an often normally functioning nervous system experiences a crushing mental event. It changes the meaning of their lives and fundamentally alters their nervous system. Now, as they repeatedly relive the event, it wires itself more and more deeply into their minds, further disrupting normal functioning.
Everyone was able to move on with life, but I felt like I was left behind. Sounds or anything could trigger it, and then all of a sudden you were down in this pit again.
The sound of a dog barking, the sound of kids screaming, it would just send me right back.
Sorry, I have to find the next part.
Okay, that was pretty graphic. Let's skip that.
Plastic also makes them vulnerable and allows trauma to alter them and create post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. But Elaine Brunet, a clinical psychologist at McGill University, has found a way to use this same neuroplasticity to cure patients of this debilitating disorder.
The sad truth is that every day people are exposed to trauma and are at risk of developing post-traumatic stress disorder. Rape victims, child abuse, car accident victims, and you are changed by your experience and you're never going to be the same again. Never. We have developed a new treatment for PTSD, and this new treatment could change the way psychologists and mental health professionals treat people.
During the course of experiencing a trauma, a person and even the brain is so overwhelmed that they cannot properly file away the thoughts, feelings, and perceptions that are happening into memory. And thus, they keep emerging over and over again as though they're happening in the present.
It's like you're in hell and there's no escape. It's living with a bad memory, and the bad memory is so vivid that you're reliving it many times a day. I would really get sick. The sweating, the shaking, and the feeling like I just wanted to hide in a closet somewhere in the dark so nobody could even know that I existed.
What is required for the treatment to work is that the memory needs to be brought back.
Researchers have found that each time any mental event is brought to conscious awareness, there's a moment of heightened plasticity in its circuit. This provides an opportunity to alter that circuit and its connections, and in the case of trauma, file those mental events in their proper place in the past.
An error occurred.
Put that in the past.
Well, we're gonna stop there, Dave,
Okay.
because I don't know if I can.
So
read
the
through.
last clip is this gentleman that started it out says, you know, I got my life back. This
Yeah.
is a phenomenal thing. It works. And I got my life back and I'm now healed. And his traumatic event was he was robbed at gunpoint. He was working in a store and a gun was put to the back of his head. And then he was like screamed at for a long time and things were thrown and basically it just triggered his brain and he couldn't, and he lost 12 years of his life and lost all of his relationships and his job and everything, and now he's got it back and he found a girlfriend and life, and they say, oh, the old Joel is back. You know, people say,
Amen.
there he is. And so there were a couple of things in this clip that I wanted you to hear. You'll notice that they said that you can file it in the past.
Yeah.
He said, once it's happened to you, you're never the same. And he said it with a really sad, you'll never be the same. And I want to tell you that it's because it's not the Jesus perspective. It's the scientific perspective without Jesus. The Jesus perspective is, I came that you might have life and have it to the full, no matter what the enemy does to you. Yes,
I was thinking you'll never be the same, that's true, you'll be better.
you can be better.
I like that.
And that's where I was
I
going.
like that.
Good job.
That's it.
You will never be the same. You'll either be worse or you'll be better. And it'll depend on whether or not you use everything that God has given you in your power and through His power to have the walk-through life. Okay? You have a destiny and a purpose.
Yeah.
So your brain can heal. And what they use some terms that are called neuroplasticity. All that means is that your brain is moldable and changeable. It can fix itself. They did not know that. They thought that before your brain was like a motor that if it had a faulty part, you know, the brain couldn't grow new parts, but it does. They have found that your brain does grow a new part. Okay?
Yeah.
And other parts of your brain can come in and fill in for parts that are damaged and do a fabulous job in another part of your brain. God created you in His own image. It's fabulously cool. So, this is the good news. So here's what God says. Let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. We're going to show you how to turn the switch off. David, I have Dr. Caroline Leaf Toxic Thoughts and your own lift now.
That's it.
Okay, let's do that right now.
Welcome to Switch on Your Brain with Dr. Caroline Leaf.
What is the impact of toxic thinking on you, spirit, soul, and body? 350 million people worldwide suffer from depression. More than 40 million people in the United States of America suffer from anxiety disorders. There are more deaths from suicide than there are from car accidents. 75 to 98% of current mental physical illnesses come from our thought life. You build these toxic thoughts in your brain inflames. You increase your vulnerability to disease. There's a problem. When we go toxic, that toxic spreads like a virus. Like the Ebola virus or bird flu, these different viruses spread. And that impacts how your mind is functioning, and that impacts how your spiritual development is functioning. Deuteronomy 30:19 is becoming a reality in today's world. There are consequences of our choices, and it's time for us to stand up and take responsibility for the choices that we're making. It's impacting our spirit, soul, and body. It's making us sick. It's making the world sick. We need to recognize we can't hide it anymore. We have to change. We have to start recognizing the impact of toxic thinking. And the brain controls every single cell in your body. And your brain is connected to your heart, and your heart and your brain are the only actual organs that connect to every single cell in your body. And then all the other parts of the body connect in different ways. But your brain controls every single cell of your body. We are triune beings, and that means we have a spirit, soul, and body. And we are designed that our spirit controls our soul, and our soul controls our body. And the Holy Spirit controls all of that. So it's Holy Spirit to soul to body. Your soul, which is your mind realm, your thinking, your choosing, and your feeling changes the physical structure of your brain. That is what brain science is showing. That is what God is revealing through revealing science. He's revealing how incredible He is. He is showing that He has given us a brain in an inner body, not to make us feel bad or to just make us look bad or good or whatever, or just give us a hard time. He gave you a brain and a body so that you could get closer to Him.
Welcome to Switch on Your Brain with Dr.
So we have here some trees. And these images are here to illustrate what's going on in your brain. The neural pathways, the neurons in your brain, are referred to in brain science as the magic trees of the mind. I did not know this. I thought that a thought was just some little electric impulse that went through your brain and then evaporated into space somewhere. Nope. Your thoughts grow dendrites. They can be photographed. Okay? They can be seen. Time-lapse photography watches them grow. And you can see what's going on in the thought life of a person. Now, God made you in His image, and what science has proven is that He wired you for your brain to operate in a positive direction. When you're born, your brain is wired for love. It only thinks positive thoughts, okay? It's only there to receive positive thoughts and support. And this is an illustration, but when your thoughts are healthy and you feel loved and your needs are met, it's all good. But when you experience things that are frightful and painful, when fear enters, you begin growing a toxic thought, okay? And these fear-filled thoughts actually look different. They're blacker, they're dark, and they become a mass. See how these are intricate and detailed? What happens in the brain is that when you have a fear-filled experience, okay, and a thought and emotion that goes with that, and you experience them simultaneously in the brain, they weld together, okay? They fired at the same time, and they weld together. Then they get thick like trunks, okay? Pretty soon, they get all tangled and absorbed in more fear and more thoughts and more fear, and pretty soon, you have toxic thoughts going on. That's where your patterns and habits come, okay? You're hardwiring that. So the science that's come is that you can experience neuroplasticity, where the brain can heal, and this is how it happens. You take the negative. What we didn't talk about was the new formula that brain science has found for us to help someone get over PTSD. This is how you turn the switch off. You, in a calm and relaxed state, they give you a drug to get you calm and relaxed. We show you how to connect to Jesus. He's way better than a drug. Okay, so we can help show you how to connect with Jesus, and that puts you in a calm state. You remember the event in all of its detail, and you look for Jesus. And He gives you information about that, and He comes and turns your switch off. It's a phenomenon we have seen over and over and over. That fight, flight, freeze switch, Jesus turns that off for you.
I use it in the jail almost every day.
Okay? So the cool thing is, now they don't, typical science isn't going to mix Jesus with medicine. So what they do is they give you a pill, the kind of pill that they give you, propranolol, before you go into surgery, okay? That makes you feel a little calmer. You don't jump off the table and run out of the hospital right before surgery, okay? So you're calm. And then they have you write down and do another thing that Scripture tells you to do. Confess to one another so that you may be healed.
Yeah.
You bring it up in a calm state and you write down in detail everything that happened to you and how you felt about it is to the best of your ability, okay? Now, this feels really awkward and uncomfortable, and this guy says, I wanted to bolt. I thought, this is screwed. I went home after that first time that they had me do that, and I had nightmares until the next week I went back, and I had to do it again, okay? But he had lots of courage, and he did it again. So, he said, this isn't going to work. But they had him come back 5 weeks, once a week, for about 15 minutes. He would go in there and read his narrative of his story. And on the 5th time, his brain switched it off, and he didn't feel afraid anymore. He could tell you his story, and he could remember it, but it didn't freak him out anymore.
In his testimony, he says, you guys have something here. This is going to change people.
So what we have is we want to teach you how to do it for yourself, and we want you to be able to do it for other people. Because when we can bring Jesus into here, and He can come in and take the message that you have, that my life is over, it's a wreck, I'm in fight or flight all the time, and He can turn off your survivalist switch and tell you, I got you. I got this.
Yeah.
You're okay. You're safe. People just go, oh my God, literally. And they can move on and begin the rebuilding process. So Dr. Caroline Leaf gave us a summary of things. She said, you have the power to change your genes. You have the power to take negative thoughts and turn them back into healthy thoughts again. You can take your brain back. This is good news.
Yeah.
That means that you don't have to ask for a doctor to fix you.
Mm.
You don't have to wait for disability to come in so that you're safe. You don't have to do, you are in total control. You now have the power to be okay. Amen. She told us that 87 to 95%, it's actually 98% of all mental, emotional, and physical illness comes from our thoughts. We are thinking ourselves into a destiny, either good or bad. Our thoughts, whether you're aware of what you're, okay, let's just talk about this for a second. Sometimes you're not even aware, I know, I got 2 minutes. Sometimes you're not even aware of what you're thinking. You can't change a thought that you don't know is there. So you cannot just allow your brain to go willy-nilly, helter-skelter. It's time to start looking at, what am I thinking? I know I'm feeling this. Why am I feeling this? What am I thinking? What's that thought that's tied to that? We're going to teach you how to do that. Because it's causing an outcome. Thoughts occupy mental real estate. They're a physical entity in your brain, and you were wired in a positive direction. All negativity has to be learned. God didn't wire you that way. And you are neuroplasticians. Say, I'm a neuroplastician.
I'm a neuroplastician.
Put that on your resume now.
Yeah.
All that means is that you can change your brain.
Is that an NP?
You can change a negative thought in just 21 days, and in an additional 21 days, you can get a new pattern. This is really cool stuff. All right, so here's the enemy plan versus God's plan. The enemy's plan was to steal, kill, and destroy. Let's say God's plan together.
To
save,
heal,
and deliver. I like that one better. The enemy's plan is, and his method is pain. And God's method is love.
Yeah.
And the enemy's plan and his madness is our little t-truths, our thinking errors, the lies that he's whispered in our vulnerable times, yeah, and we believed them, and then our destructive behaviors. That's the madness, okay? Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering and more pain, and then we go again. But God's masterpiece is
The truth will set you free.
okay. I want you to see that I finished a minute early. Right? Or am I half an hour late?
You're half an hour late, but that's all right. We're
Well,
good.
I only got until a quarter till.
You started the half hour late.
Thank you. I want to take about a 10-minute break, 7-minute break. Get some food if you like, or not, because we have a nice lunch coming.